All right, everyone, welcome. SANDDAO podcast number 25. 25. 25. Today, in continuation of our Lessons from Other DAOs mini series, the first one was Lessons with Davivi from City DAO. And we learned a lot about how voting algorithms can benefit us there. Coming at you a little different this time from ApeCoin DAO, someone who I've been listening to for quite a while in Bulls in the Block and some other Twitter spaces like that. And it Derek is with us today. He brings like a very a wealth of not just game developer background, as you'll hear a little bit later, but also uh, deeply analytical, mathematical. So kind of talking about the mathematical realities and of not just the way things look and feel, but also the way they are in real life. And that so I'm here to learn from him today about that and what the picture it looks like for the ApeCoin DAO and some of the lessons that we can now draw into the sandbox. So it's mostly meet and greet. Scope of the talk is a meet and greet and a learning opportunity from Derek. And as a disclaimer, Derek and I, we do not represent the Sandbox Game or the Sandbox Foundation. And as far as I'm aware, Derek, you don't represent anything from ApeCoin DAO, correct? Just a regular DAO member, he says. And so we are not your financial or legal advisors, and nothing we say is to be taken as financial or legal advice. Scoreboard, as of yesterday, two new SIPs have entered the arena, one being the Windows Resizing Resolution Options, which I am the author of, SIP number 14. And SIP number 15 is Metaverse and Disability Hiring Program by Meta Futura, who we interviewed yesterday with an Italian interpreter. That was the first time I'd done an interpretation type podcast where I didn't speak the language that they did. It was awesome. I loved it. I'll probably do it again sometime. And then SIP number 13 is still out there for another day, another 24 hours, which is the crafting and NFT drops by Crypto Diplo. I believe that was SANDDAO podcast number 21. So if you're interested in the details of all of those proposals, please go look at the past few SandDAO podcasts, and you can hear the authors themselves speak about the SIPs and what they're all about. And then I will do my own interview of myself here, probably in the next day or two, for SIP number 15. The checkbook, we're now at 2.3 million of the 15.5 million sand budget. So that's 15% spent, and we've been in business as a DAO for about 3 months. DAO base, we're still looking at 1,800 voters, 211,000 token holders for Sand and vote and the landowners as well. And that'll bring us right into the introduction. So I'm Lanzer. I'm the podcast host. I'm a landowner. I'm also uh, in parallel with the subject of today. I'm also an ape, so I do have some stake in this. But I'm almost exclusively SandDAO podcast and the Sandbox DAO as a landowner and as a gamer and a participant. Um, and that's me. Derek, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and where you come from.
Well, I'm DerekSmart. Been around. I'm from here. I've traveled the world, worked all over the place. I'm currently based in South Florida. I'm a software developer. I have two indie dev studios. We mostly do sci-fi games, and I formed another studio back in 21 to do Web3 games. And so I have people all over the world who work on various projects, and right now we're working on two Web3 projects that are due out in 2025.
Wow, that's
Other
cool.
than that, just a regular game developer. Been doing it for 30, 40 years now.
Yeah, he says regular developer here, but a little bit of research into that will show that you've been in game development since I thought I saw the 1980s,
Yep,
and you're a battle cruiser AD 3000 AD fame.
yep,
So
yep,
one
yep.
of the most OGest of the OG game devs out there, and one of the captions that you had was indie before it was a thing, which is basically to say when you began, the community was independent. It right on the cusp of the internet coming into being, and I remember those days, not on this game dev, but as a consumer, like the old Flash games and everything that kind of boiled it up into. StarCraft, but Battlecruiser made headlines at the time. So um, he says just a game dev, but there's a huge history there, and a wealth of knowledge. One of which is the reason why when he speaks, you can tell he's speaking from experience. Can you help us understand how did you get to what's the road to the ApeCoin DAO for you?
Oh, it was pretty straightforward, actually. Back in 2020, when everybody was trying not to die from COVID, a friend of mine had approached me. I, I had bought a game a couple of years before, prior to that, so from some investors who we were running it for. And during COVID, when the world shut down and everybody's trying not to die, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next because I was in between projects. And a friend of mine approached me because he knew I had this other game. And he said, "Hey, um, we should make a game for Web3. I'm going to make a game for Web3. And, how about you license this game to me that you decided to sit on?" So we got talking back and forth, and I was already familiar with blockchain. I mean, I'm a dev, I'm a technologist, so I always try to keep track of all the everything going on in the game dev world. So since the Bitcoin paper from many years earlier, I was already familiar with blockchain and all this, but I never really wanted to do anything with Web3 games because it just wasn't something I wanted to get involved with, especially because there were so many scams and so many crazy things going on. And I figured that if I started to talk or do anything with crypto, my install base would probably find where I live and kidnap me and burn me at the stake or something. So in the end, long story short, we ended up doing a thing whereby I said, okay, fine, rather than license this game, since I hadn't re-released the game that I bought, we would it's an MMORPG game. We figured that we would then re-release it for Web3, do a bunch of visual improvements, some development tweaks, some updates, and things like that, and stick a blockchain at the back on the back end, and just re-release it as a Web3 game. So I ended up forming a new studio for that, and during the course of doing that, yet another friend of mine, approached me and said, "Hey, um, if you really want to get an idea of the people behind this whole Web3 movement, this is, we're talking 2020, 21, 22, and thereabouts. You really need to get involved with some of these Web3 communities because they're kind of different from the standard gaming community." So I said, "Okay, yes, you're right." So I looked into a few of them, quite a few of them actually, and eventually, this particular friend of mine, he owned like I think Matt owned like five or six apes. And in the end, I reached out to some of the primaries of the ApeCoin DAO, talked to them, talked to a few of them on Twitter, had some emails and messages, and then I was convinced that since the apes were big in the day and they were the apes of the premier NFT assets at the time, I figured that would be a good jumping point because they're very very engaged with everybody. So I decided to join the ApeCoin DAO, and I've been stuck in there ever since. I'm now the old man yelling at clouds kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's my journey.
So it almost seemed like a friend of a friend of a friend road
Yep,
led you to the
yep,
biggest, baddest thing on the block, which at the time was apes.
yep. That's
Okay.
absolutely correct.
How about
That's
that?
how that worked out. Yeah, I know. I would never done it otherwise because it just simply wasn't on my radar.
Yeah. And so you had already known about blockchain, you just hadn't really plugged into the Web3 community.
Correct, correct,
Okay.
correct.
Got it.
One of the things that I looked at, I never really thought. I mean, everybody talks about blockchain from a technology standpoint. There's really nothing you can't do on the blockchain. You can't do with regular tech stacks. It's just another name. I regard blockchain as any other tech stack that I would use, whether it's audio, networking, or database or whatever. It's just not a piece of tech. So in that regard, I never really thought that I would want to do a game, quote unquote, crypto game just for that purpose.
Gotcha. Okay. And so at this point in time, I have recorded that you have over 20 AIPs that you've written and you've obtained trust level 3,
Yep.
which when I when I read the excerpt on that, it basically says you're one of the most active readers and a reliable contributor that makes our community great. You can now, and there's a whole list of privileges that you can now do, almost like a moderator. So, oh, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, no, that's fine. I was just waiting for you to pause.
Yeah, it's so 20 apes AIPs written and trust level 3. You just a big fan, or how did you get to that point?
Funny story. Usually, anybody who knows my history, starting from Usenet, AOL, CompuServe, Bix, Kix, Net, all Netscape, all those communities from back in the day know that even Reddit, I get it, I get involved, and as a gamer, I was a gamer first before I became a game dev. So I've never really forgotten my roots because communities start small, and then you have all the key players, and you have to find all the key players and see what they do, follow what they do, and then you create your own clusters. So for me, the community life isn't anything new. So when I joined the ApeCoin DAO and I saw the eclectic community and all the different faces and voices and all the crazies and most serious people, it's really it's a really fun community. So
Yeah.
the more I got involved with it, the more I realized that this was a really good community to be in, and you can make a difference. I mean, some people breeze through communities once in a while, but discourse is a primary hub for the ApeCoin community. Even though a lot of the ApeCoin holders don't go through there, it's the main hub, and it's where most of the activity originates from. So for me, because when I do so, I always say that if you're going to do something, do it right. I don't. I value my time. I value the time that I spend with people and my contributions. And I figured that if I was going to make a difference, I had to be part and parcel of that. And you can't do that by just showing up when you feel like it. You just have to show up and participate. And that's how I ended up with all these accolades and all these AIPs and all the
Yeah.
noise and craziness that goes with it.
Be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also part of the problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, some would definitely describe you as that, no doubt.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm the old man I'm the old man in the Dow who yells at clouds consistently, but everybody listens, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
If
no,
people
it
don't
it
li-
it kinda
if
reminds
people
me of
don't
what.
listen to you, it's bad. If they don't listen to you, that's bad. When they listen to you, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember if it was Aristotle or Socrates who they end up, executing because he kept saying, like, "You gotta be careful about." I think it was Socrates that.
So yeah.
Yeah, the one who kind of warned against the oligarchy and how they were, like, kinda subverting democracy, and then they, execute him for it. That sort of thing. But that's the image I got a couple BOTBs ago on Saturday when you had said, "Hey, I know no one's talking about this, but if you read the quarterly report, if you minus the liabilities from the revenue, you'll see that we are far in the red." And that wasn't even taken into account the banana bill that had just passed. And then it was like a pen dropped, and everyone's like, "Oh." I think it was Aaron who said, "Can you run that by me again?" And you kind of
Yeah.
explained the metrics, which I imported some of that here so that we could go over a little bit what that means, because that's a lesson that I want. I mean, it's an iceberg that every entity that has a budget has to deal with is liabilities, revenue. Are you are you bringing in more than it's going out?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that Sandbox DAO will have to face as well, one way or another, whether we proactively do it or reactively do it, as I think you're going to get into with how the ApeCoin DAO has done it. So cool. So you very much a person. When you see it, you go in it all the way, and in this case, you become very heavily involved in the ApeCoin DAO, and just couldn't help yourself. I can see.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I'm no doubt it is. So explain for and just as a this might seem like a weird question, but what is the ApeCoin DAO? And I'll preface with saying May 28th was when the Sandbox DAO came out of nowhere. No warning, no nothing. It was May 28th. Hey, there's a DAO now. May 29th, hey, there are 3 SIPs that we want the community to vote on. It was just bam, 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 bam. And we had a constitution before we even knew it and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of us had no idea what a DAO was. A lot of us weren't even plugged into what other DAOs were doing, like ApeCoin. Some of us barely even know what apes were. We knew what JPEGs were. We know like the the monkeys things going on and Bored Ape Yacht Club. Had heard of it before, but not really a good understanding of what a DAO was, much less what other DAOs were doing. Can you please give us an excerpt? What is the ApeCoin DAO?
Well, the ApeCoin DAO was formed out of the Yuga IP back in 2022. What had happened was they had their token, and Yuga Labs donated to the community a one of one ape. And from that point on, when they formed the DAO, they also had been given a token allocation with like a $1.4 billion treasury, so part of the token. So the ApeCoin DAO was formed as a sort of hub for the ape community to go to and to fund their ideas and their dreams, and to use this money to, well, in a word, better themselves. And a lot of the apes are very, very creative people, like you would find in most communities. And this DAO was set up for them so that they could bring all their creativity and they could build a community around the DAO, based on the DAO, and be able to, you know, um, uh, grow together. And that's precisely what they did. But this was, back in 2022, early 2022, and
Gotcha.
that's how the DAO was born.
And I noticed I reread this one again. You had a Medium article called "Why Yuga Had to Pivot," and you said Yuga Labs isn't a gaming company; it's an art culture trying to pivot into a gaming company in order to support the art culture. Can you connect that to? Does it have any connection to the DAO at all?
Well, it doesn't, and even Yuga will be the first to tell you that they've always taken a hands-off approach to the DAO anyway,
Okay, okay,
and it's always for some, I mean, it's legal reasons and other reasons. But the reason I wrote that article is because a lot of our ape friends were, going nuts when Yuga announced that they had reduced the scope of the other side
yeah.
platform, and
Which I
a
play,
lot
by
of
the way.
people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of people had, well, I mean, I've been in game development for a very, very long time. I know that things change along the way. And sometimes gamers don't like change, especially if you promise to do A and you deliver B. It doesn't matter how good B is, it doesn't matter if B is better than A. They don't care. All they care about is you promise A. I don't care about your B. So I'm used to that. So when I saw the noise around the whole other side thing, I mean, it already started from when the switch from Improbable M2 to Hadean, and then Daniel Allegri, who's a from our gaming industry, was there, and then he left, and then they switched back to Improbable, and a lot of people started making noise, and then Yuga came out and said, "Hey, we're not spending time and money and resources to build an MMORPG that takes all this time. We're not doing that. We're doing this, this, and this." So I felt that a lot was lost in translation. And I felt that as a member of the DAO and as a game dev and a gamer, that I could better articulate from all these three angles why I felt they had to pivot and what the message was. And funny enough, that's precisely what they've done. And the reason why people don't seem to understand that Yuga is an art company first, and not just pivoting to a game company, but a way of, games are the entry point for any social construct that has to be successful. There's absolutely no way around it. There's a reason why hardware manufacturers, software, they all find ways to use gaming, whether it's esports, whether it's it's marketing. They always find a way to integrate gaming into their marketing, into their plans. You just can't get around it. So for me, it made sense that Yuga would try to use gaming as a way to keep their community active, alive, and engaged. It makes sense. I mean, there's so much you can do with it with a JPEG. You either look at it as your PFP, or you stake it, or you just farm it and recycle and make money off of it. But if you have a game and you can engage in community, there's another way to keep people within the ecosystem. It's no different from Microsoft having Xbox and software and their web platform. It's just a collective. It's a collection of assets, and in this case, a collection of communities and things that Yuga can share with the community to engage in, whether it's a mobile game, whether it's an event-driven platform like Other Side, whether it's the collections that they've created or they've bought. It's all these things as a cohesive whole. And I wrote that article because I wanted people to understand how it is that Yuga as a startup needs to not only pivot but also to adapt to growing conditions as they grow, because Yuga is a startup. People tend to forget that, and startups pivot and reshape their goals and plans all the time. Those that don't are the ones that don't survive.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. And within the community, as you mentioned, your uh your, your community member, what is your do you have like an unofficial role or even an official role of any kind?
No, I do not. And one of the reasons why I never really wanted to be in an official role, I've never been up for any elections or anything like that, is because I felt that the way the DAO is structured, any DAO, if you're one of three, one of five, one of six, one of seven, it's very difficult to make a difference. It's in teams, there's no I in team. It's a team effort, but because everybody tries to push this whole, decentralization, which to me is a fallacy, by the way. People who try to push this whole decentralization of DAOs, and you can have this person do this, it just simply doesn't work. No matter how you structure a DAO, you have to structure it as a team. If you have seven people in one particular you say group, whether they're a special counsel, as we call them, in our DAO, or they're stewards and governance working group, they're all a part of a team. And even if they're decentralized, you still have to be a part of that team. You have to be, it has to be a cohesive whole. I felt that I was better off on the outside looking in, because on the outside I can yell without any ramifications. Being on the inside, I can't yell. I have to toe the line, and I have to, whether you're a team player or not, don't. I've always felt that the team is only as strong as the collective voice. It doesn't help if you have five people wanting to go left and you have one or two people want to go right. You just headed for disaster. And in the end, even if you compromise, you might compromise against your better judgment. So I felt that being on the outside, because the community votes from people in our community in these positions, I felt that a voice like mine and a voice like others like mine who don't want to be in a position are better off being on the outside, shaping the community, showing what can be better, what we can do better, how we can adapt, how we can grow. And those who are coming into these leadership positions can better learn. A
Okay.
lot of people
That
don't seem to
makes sense.
understand that you can actually do better from the outside than you can from the inside in the Muslim communities.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain degree of separation that affords you the freedom, flexibility, and just simply the clean conscience of knowing I'm not beholden to anything. There's no like conflict of interest that starts creeping in on things. That makes
Correct.
sense. Yeah,
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
yeah, makes sense. So let's get into the analytics.
Sure.
The first thing I pulled was DAO-based AI analytics on the ApeCoin DAO, and some of these numbers, DAO-based is still trying to get some of its development right, but what they do have right is the token holders, 153,000 token holders, 298 proposals, which I think is way low. I think we're at 400 something now.
Yeah. Well, some of them are withdrawn, so you could have we're up to
Oh,
580 or something. So some of them
okay.
either get withdrawn or they never really make it to admin review. Sometimes people start their proposals and they abandon them for whatever
Fair,
reason.
fair, fair.
So yeah.
Okay. So last I checked, we were at AIP 486. That might have changed since I built this last week. And 9,800 voters. So quite a bit of activity. Probably one of the largest and most active DAOs that I've seen. I don't know if there is a DAO that has more proposals than the ApeCoin DAO. at this point. It's pretty fascinating just to read through them and see the history. And can you give me a brief overview? I found four sources of data: the transparency report, the DAO progress report. Oh, I already said the transparency report. So, transparency report, progress report, and quarterly report.
All right.
Where do you draw your data from?
Well, I draw my data from the actual for all three of them,
That,
because sometimes, even though these accounts are audited on their end, sometimes you will find that there's some missing pieces that you have to, draw your own conclusions. For example, when I wrote about a week ago, a lot of people were sending me messages about my analysis about how the DAO was out of money because I used the term going concern. A lot of people didn't even bother go to Chat GPT or to Google to find out what going concern meant. They just assumed when I said the DAO was out of money that there was $0 in the treasury, which is not correct. You're familiar with the term going concern. So I did a follow up, and in doing that follow up, which was actually prompted by a thread that one of our ex special counsel members, Captain Trippy, had put up on X, gave me the idea to also do a deep dive into how much money the DAO actually has between now and then and how much tokens we had left. And it occurred to me that my numbers, not only were they accurate, I also did a drill down on how the DAO was making money. Actually, it's not, because the DAO has zero revenue. Um,
yeah,
it gets,
that was very
yeah,
obvious to me just by looking at the dashboard.
yes,
Oh
yes.
my
The DAO,
gosh.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the DAO wasn't set up to generate revenue. They created the DAO as a grant system to the community. So when they all started this whole thing, nobody thought that, oh wait, if we keep giving money away, there's going to be a point when there's not going to be anything left. And funny enough, this whole thing came to a head back in November when I kept writing articles on X and on our Discourse saying, hey guys, if we don't start figuring out ways to make money, we're going to run out of money. People just ignored it. And so when this quarterly report dropped for Q1 24, and I took a look at it, I was very shocked. So I ran those numbers so that we had about, taking into account the banana bill, we had about $100 million left. And then I extrapolated from the token unlocks based on how much DAO is getting every month, about 7,000, tokens. I extrapolated about how much the Yuga and the founders and the Yuga Labs had left, and discovered that most of the pain of the unlocks were already passed. So most of the unlocks left now are what's left for the DAO, which ends in 2026, I believe, and some of the Yuga Labs and the founders. So basically, if the DAO doesn't start making money yesterday, we're going to be out of money. And I calculate today, as of today, before this session, I calculated that in 14 months we're out of money, like as in $0, because we're getting 7,000 tokens unlocked every month. The token value is depreciated heavily, as you know, and with 7,000 unlocked and no investments, and committed to accounts payable and the upcoming proposals, the DAO is not going to be able to pay for those proposals based on 7,000 tokens per month, which means it's basically no longer going concern in 14 months.
That's a scary number.
It
Some
is.
people
It
might
is.
think 14 months is a long time. It is not.
It is not. It is absolutely not. It is not. And the thing about it is, and the reason why I mentioned it on
Yikes.
Bulls on the Block is because a lot of people don't pay attention to this stuff.
What's the
Because
motto? Apes don't read or something like
yeah,
that?
yes, apes don't read, and the thing about it is, the and I have to mention this, the unfortunate thing about our community is very few want to talk about the bad news, because nobody wants to be the one
Yeah,
tilting
like
the
the
apple
bad
cart.
vibes and
Yeah,
everything.
the
And
bad vibes. Yes, yes, yes. So myself and one or two others would always opine on these things, and we get very little traction, but we do get a lot of messages. I mean, you'd be surprised how many DMs we get through in the back channels, because nobody wants to say anything. Because the way the DAO is, and you guys will find this on your end as well, depending on how your DAO is set up, but most people who come to the DAO come for one specific reason. to get the proposals passed,
Sure.
to get some money, to go do some business or whatever. So you're not going to get that far by being the unpopular dude who says, "Hey, we're out of money," or "Hey, this doesn't look right," or "Hey, this smells funny." Um, People watch that, and the next thing you know, you probably have an AIP go up, and everybody votes it down because you're the Debbie Downer. So you run that risk. So most people don't speak about anything that doesn't look right. So some of us just do it because we can and because we don't want anything from the DAO.
And it's wrong. So give me those initial numbers one more time. How much is going in and how much is going out? I think you said 500K.
I'll tell you right now. You already have this on the report where we had 326 million in ape in treasury. We had 255 K in accounts payable. We had 59 million reserved for grants. And as of now, when we look at the token unlocks, the DAO has about
Oh,
$100 million, 100 million left to unlock worth of tokens, assuming the token price holds. Which, when I checked it, it was at $68, 68 ape to a dollar. So by that calculation, we had $100 million left in unlocks. That's basically it, added to what we have already.
100 million ape, right?
Yep, 100 million.
Okay.
No,
So that's
100 million
70.
dollars. $100 million.
Okay, 100 million US
Dollars converted
dollars
to ape.
left to
Yeah, USD.
unlock.
Yeah.
And when you say left to unlock, what does unlock mean?
Well, unlock means when they did the token allocations, some of the tokens were not unlocked to be spent or converted.
Ape
So
tokens?
yes, ape tokens,
Okay.
they have vesting periods, cliffs, the whole nine yards, which is, and the treasury, the investors, the community, apes had like 150 million, Yuga Labs founders, they all had tokens with vesting periods and cliffs, and those unlock over time. And part of those unlocks are the DAO's own tokens. So the DAO can have 7 million tokens a month. It's up to them whether or not they want to use them or leave them locked. I mean, they can leave them locked, but they can do whatever they want with them whenever they're ready, which works out to about $5.5 million a month if you do the USD, based on 68 cents at the time when I did this calculations.
Yeah, you're not far off right now. It's point 0.7. It's 75 cents right now trading.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
yeah. So you said there's 7,000 ape tokens unlocking every month.
I can give you the exact number.
That's fine. Close enough.
The DAO has exactly, hang on, 7.3 million tokens per month. The
Million.
exact,
Okay.
no,
Now
million,
I get it.
million,
Now I get
million,
it.
million,
All right.
million, million. The actual number is
Yikes.
7,343,750
That
per
trend is
per month.
that's red alert right there.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. It is.
Oh my gosh.
But
I don't if anyone's who is an entrepreneur, you're a mathematician or an accountant, like you will instantly realize just the numbers are not going in the right direction on that one.
well, hey, it's worse than it sounds, because the DAO has 18 months left of unlocks, which comes out to about 132 million tokens
132 million tokens?
left to unlock for the next 18 months. Yes.
Okay, right. Yeah, gotcha. Ooh, you're gonna be out of money in 14.
Well, let me give you a little nuance here. Remember, the DAO just allocated 100 million to the banana bill back on July 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically allocated pretty much all our unlocks to the banana bill, which is $100 million. Think about that. So the
Yeah.
18 months runway, which is about $100 million, we just allocated that to one initiative, the banana bill. And that banana bill has to turn that $100 million. Not only do they have to recoup that $100 million, they have to turn a profit because it's supposed to be a revenue generating initiative. That's the
Gotcha.
scary part that nobody pays attention to.
Well, I am quite certain that your voice will not be the only one that grows louder and louder on that. There's the numbers just are not. Yikes. That's not
Well,
good.
yeah, the other yikes is that's just Q1 24. We don't have the Q2 and Q3 numbers yet. And when those numbers drop, because the banana bill was funded in Q3,
Hmm.
July. So when those numbers fall and we see Q2 and Q3, I know it's going to paint an even more dire picture because, again, the DAO is not generating any revenue.
Right. Right.
So there's no expectation that we're going to see more money come in other than these 7 million token, this 5.5 million dollars per month going into the treasury via the unlocks. But if you're getting 5.5 million and you're spending over 30-40 million dollars a month, I mean, you're already in a negative before you even breathe.
Yeah. Y'all are definitely in the negative right now. So you gotta make that banana bill work. You better make more bananas.
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident there will be some good things coming out of there.
Okay.
Just how it happens and whether or not. I mean, everybody knows that most investments lose. So if you go
Sure.
by the Web3 trends and you say that we're going to lose 90, we stand a chance of losing 90% of $100 million. Nobody wants to talk about that because 90% loss is actually the metric right now. So you can basically say the best we can do is at least not lose 50% of it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I ran some numbers on y'all's market cap. I say y'all our market cap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, in April 2022, the market cap was 25.97 billion total supply. Right.
Yep.
As of 2 months ago, it had depreciated 96% down to 843 million.
Oh yeah, but that tracks also because remember the Dow had an initial treasury of 1.4 billion when it started out. 1.4 billion with a B. Now we're like 200 million.
Wow.
It's lessons learned, huh?
Lessons learned indeed.
Yeah, the way I look at it, the way I see it is it's only bad if you assume that the Dow was set up to be a profit business. It wasn't. It was set up to be a grants DAO, and somewhere along the line, I'm not sure how they figured that they were going to keep giving money away without running out of money. So I don't know, and nobody has answered, give me a good answer to that. But that's
Well,
basically
that's the
how it
same
is.
situation Sandbox is in. Right now, the Sandbox has committed to a yearly budget of about 15 million, 25 million sand. It's going to give the budget every December. Um, but as some of us have noted, if you pay attention to some of the numbers that Sandbox are running, we don't think they're turning a profit yet, even though they're still cash positive, because of their series fund that they raised. But I don't want to rely on Sandbox forever and ever giving us an endowment. I think that's
Yeah,
a plan. I think that's plan to fail
yeah, oh
is
yeah,
relying on that. So that's some of the things that, and especially one of the reasons why I had you on today was to enunciate that where you are now is where we could be now if we don't take lessons learned. And where you were and when the beginning sounds a whole lot like where we were or where we are right now in the
correct,
beginning.
correct.
Yeah,
And
they're
you guys are
strikingly
3 months,
similar.
you guys are 3 months old, so you have plenty of time to figure this out. If you leave it to the last minute, you're not going to make it.
See, I'm heavy. I regret not even. I am hesitant to even say that because if you say that, then you give us license to just let kick the can down the road and down and down until suddenly, oh my gosh, we're out of time.
This
uh,
is true. This
yeah.
is true. This is true.
So, yeah. Anyways, just a lamenting. So I think you painted a very clear picture of the DAO's finances at this point, and for 1.4 billion treasury to start. At the time, it was 326 million. I think you just said it was 200 million left.
Yep.
So about 200 million now left, and 225,000 in accounts payable, 59 million reserved for grants, and the 100 million for Banana Bill has spoken for the remaining 100 million ape that's left to unlock.
Yep.
So Do or die moment is what it is.
I think what's going to happen is, right now it's basically a case of trying to figure out how to cut costs. We've taken some cost, cutting measures, whereby,
Yeah, the
we
250,000 thing.
yeah, and 69% threshold passing, but that's really neither here nor there, because most of the delegates and who vote for these things are friends of friends. They're all in the friends and family program. So I think that 250K plus 69% is only going to affect, you know, the smaller guys, not the guys who are, deep into the ecosystem, who know people, who know people, who know delegates. But there are lots of cost cutting measures. I mean, right now I have three unpopular proposals going through where I'm shutting down. Well, I'm trying to shut down three working groups that are costing the DAO $3 million
Yeah.
a year, because most of the guys are just having no show jobs, except for one or two of them. So
I was
that's $3
listening to
million
you as you were
right
explaining
there.
that to the whole team, and yet another pin drop that,
Yeah,
like, Derek, are
yeah,
you sure you want to do that?
yeah.
But when you
I re-
explained it out a little bit, it made a lot more sense that you're not talking about like shutting down Marcoms and not. There's a lot of other stuff that people brought up as concerns. Like that's not if you pay attention to the words of your proposal, they're not so draconian. They're just applying analytical math to we can't keep this going. We
correct,
can't keep
correct.
being like this.
Correct. I mean, for one thing, one of the savings, this is a lesson you guys would learn on your end as well, is don't put people in positions where they are paid without KPIs and OKRs, and there's no structure in place to replace them. Right now, I'm not going to name names, but we have people in these DAO positions pulling over 9K per month, and they don't show up to do anything. They simply don't show up, and you can't remove them. So these are lessons you have to learn. You have to put in, procedures and processes, so that if you elect somebody into position, you can actually remove them. Because guess what's going to happen? The DAO votes these people in by the popular vote, which is already bad as it is, because it's not 1-to-1. It's based on how many, you know, ape tokens you have in a wallet. So when you vote these people in, their friends vote them in. So if you try to kick them out, their friends are going to vote for them again and kill the vote. So we have that. So it doesn't make any sense. You have to put in controls whereby you can actually remove people for cause without having to run the risk of going through a vote again, and then their friends come back and say, no, 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 we still want them there, and they go in and collect a paycheck for doing nothing. And these proposals, by the way, the other thing is, most of the positions, you don't need to have people on staff spending $3 million a year, when you can hire third parties on as needed basis and pay less. And those third party companies and teams, whether it's for web development, whether it's for marketing, communications, whether it's for analytics, those people want your business. So they're going to do everything they can to make sure they adhere to OKRs and KPIs, or they lose your business, or they send an invoice, they get paid, and you find somebody else if they don't go good job. But when you vote people in these positions, you don't have that luxury, and so people can basically not show up for anything. That's the reason why I'm trying to close it through working groups, so the DAO can go hire people in this position the same way they hire attorneys and accountants and all the other service providers that we can hire without going through a voting process. That saves money, and it brings accountability and transparency.
So you're talking bring accountability, don't put people in position without KPIs, key performance indicators, and then enforceability. You need to put controls into place to remove people for cause if need be.
Correct, correct, correct. You have to be able to say, so we voted you in, but the special counsel or whoever is on top of your top tier should have the authority, based on a vote amongst themselves, of course, to remove these people. Otherwise, you cannot rely on the voting system to remove them, if it's the voting system by popular demand that put them there, because they're just going to get all their friends who voted for them in the first place to vote for them to keep their jobs. Then you're stuck.
The interesting thing that's happening right now in Sandbox is delegations were just announced by the DAO administrator. They're taking a different approach though. The delegation are closed delegations. You have to apply to have a delegation, and then you have to, in order to be accepted, you have to, as of this moment, accept like a code of conduct. And there's different rules, like you're not allowed to get paid. You have to announce when there's conflicts of interest, otherwise your delegated license, I guess, will be revoked. And so it's starting to feel like a very high bar. The most interesting one of which is if you're a delegation or if you are a delegate, you are not allowed to propose improvement proposals.
Well, that's hilarious. We don't have any of that. And that's the right way to do it. Right now, anybody in the special council, anybody in a governance working group, any steward can put up a proposal. There's a whole bunch of behind the scenes deals going on. Nobody knows what the hell's going on because you can't ask any questions. There's no transparency. There's no accountability. You can't do anything. And right now, I have a proposal. Another guy has a proposal that deals with transparency and accountability so that anybody in that gets paid by the DAO who puts up a proposal or there's a proposal coming through, they have to disclose that they are affiliated in some way, whether they work for them, they get, all these things.
Hmm.
We don't have those controls. And now we're going to try and pass those two proposals. Hopefully they pass and we'll have some of those controls, but we don't have any of those. So you guys are doing the right thing. That's
So you
that's
agree
the
with
way to do
that
it.
then?
I do agree with that. I absolutely agree with that because you need to have controls. Without controls, you lose control. That's basically how it works.
Okay. What are some other lessons that you've seen that to a young DAO like us, you say look out for this or you should go after this?
Well, you guys already have the delegation part sorted out, and you guys have all your disclosures. I think it's not just the delegates. I think you should have the same disclosures and transparency with people who the DAO hires, whether it's from the community, whether it's through the voting system, whether it's third-party hire. You should always have that as well, because again, you want to be able to replace people who just don't act right. If you get stuck in a position where you can't do that, then you just have bad actors in positions, and not only are you wasting money, but you're not getting anything done.
So you're talking the
And
special council, the advisory board, the DAO
yeah,
administrative team.
the whole 9 yards, the whole
Hmm.
9 yards. And you want to also, one of the things that we ran into last year was I tried to dissolve the entire special council because I felt that they weren't being transparent. There was no accountability. That didn't go down very well. I see you
It
laughing, but
didn't.
it gets wait, hang on. I guess it's even funnier than that because another good friend of mine actually tried to reduce their
In the business
salaries.
of making friends, are you, Derek?
Oh yeah. Hang on. This one guy tried to have the special counsel salaries reduced because when the world found out that we were paying them a significant amount of money for basically a part-time gig, it made news. It was on the block. It
How
was
much are they getting
over.
paid?
Oh, they were getting paid like I think it was like I mean, if my memory serves me right, I think special counsel is making like $2 million a year, around five of them, something like that. Don't quote me. I have to go look up the
Okay,
old
that's fine.
numbers.
I can always
But
Google
but
it later.
but it made the news. So this one guy wrote a proposal. Get this. This one guy wrote, bless his heart. He wrote a proposal to reduce the special counsel's salary, and they kicked it back and said, "Oh no, we can't do that because we would be violating contracts and agreements that we signed." Which means, the DAO, the special counsel that works at the behest of the DAO pays the special counsel, but the DAO can't adjust the special counsel's salary because the special counsel now claims that they would be in breach of agreement. So they returned the proposal for reconstruction. No, you can't do that. So basically,
Twenty
right now,
thousand dollars per month.
per month, there you go. Yes, per month. But here's,
Holy smokes! I'm reading a
oh,
CoinDesk article on it.
that's the one. It was an entire fiasco. So right now we have a special counsel
And this was just in
whereby,
June of this year.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we can fire them and we can't change the salaries. So we're basically stuck. So if you get voted into a special counsel role, you're literally stuck there through the next election. Nobody can get rid of you. nobody can reduce the salary. We did have one proposal that was written up by one of the special counsels to adjust their salaries by half, I believe, and the rest was to be vested or something like that. That passed with flying colors because everyone in the DAO was like, "Oh yeah, this is good." So we've kind of reduced that salary a bit, but it's quite hilarious that you can put people in positions that you can't get rid of them and you can't change their salaries. Basically, we have kings now.
That's a pretty incredible figure. I'll give you that. 250 grand a year is what that is.
Yes, each for
Well,
a part-time. Wait, for a part-time gig. But you know what's funny? You know how this whole thing started?
hmm,
This whole thing started because we had guys like Alexis Ohanian was part of the special council. Yatsu was part of the special council. So these are big names. So they had those big salaries. So when they exited the special council, nobody thought, well, wait, if you have someone like Alexis, and then you go hire Joe Blow, who's just a plumber, maybe you don't want to give Joe Blow 20 grand a month just because you were giving Alexis 20 grand a month. Nobody thought about that. So they just left the salaries as they were. So we went from Alexis to Joe the plumber with 20 grand a month. It
got it.
just stayed that way.
Huh. Okay. That's fascinating. Our special counsel gets 100,000 sand a year.
Which is like what, 5 cents or something?
Right now it's 40 something cents, 36 cents.
Oh, nice. So he's rich then. He's rich and
Yeah.
he's rich, I guess.
Yeah, so that's our special counsel, of which there are 5 of them.
All
One of them
right.
is Yatsu, and then we have the founder of Grail, and
Yeah,
quite
Yap's
a number of
cool.
big
Yeah,
names in there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they
Yap's
get
cool. He's cool.
reelected. They get reelected December 2025.
And how long are your terms?
1 year terms after that.
They're 1 year. Ah, okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool.
Do y'all not have 1 year terms?
Yeah, we do. We have 6 months and we have 1 year terms. And of
Oh,
course, we're
okay.
trying to change all that now. We're trying to unify all the terms because sometimes you end up in a situation where you have people come in for 6 months, and by the time their 6 months is up, they haven't done anything much of their programs or their plans and goals they had. And next thing you know, there's another election. So we're trying to. I actually have a proposal trying to fix that, to unify all the terms to be 1 year, and to give these new people coming in, and also to be able to keep the pre-existing people in place so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every 6 months or every year.
And for a pound, aren't you? My gosh,
Like I said,
that's funny.
I currently have 16 proposals going through. I can't wait.
Oh, nice. I have 5 that have actually submitted, and I have 18 on the that I plan to write.
Nice. I have two waiting in the wings. One of them is going to be superbly popular. It's the Kill the Ape staking contract.
Oh yeah, I've heard you talk about that a number of times. We have a very large, robust staking program. I know we're gonna have to go here in a few minutes, so maybe
Yeah,
we'll
of
end
course.
on this. What staking programs you have said that you can prove that it is mathematically a burden on the system?
I've
We
already
have a
done
very
that.
robust staking
I've already
program.
done that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about that. Why aren't you in favor?
Well, for one thing, it continues to bleed the treasury, and it doesn't help anyone. And even the guys who are staking, they're getting like pennies on the dollar now. So it absolutely makes no sense. It's not beneficial to anyone. It's just a strain in the treasury, for one. And two, it doesn't incentivize people as they used to because of the value of the token. So I actually, when my proposal goes up, I'm going to have all the charts, all the numbers, and everything in there. Right now, I actually have a discussion where I said we should kill staking LOL just to see how much hate I get.
You
But
must be a popular person, Derek. That's okay. I have quite an affinity with you on that because some of my background is the un what's the word, the uncomfortable truth of mathematics,
oh yeah,
and
oh yeah,
how it sometimes comes across as a kind of rainy day parade, but if you ignore it at your peril.
absolutely, absolutely. And again, remember, our community, I love my community. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're a bunch of nutters, but I love them. We all get it. We get together. We fight. We argue. We fuss. But at the end of the day, it's a community. The good thing about communities, they're all have this, this feel good kumbaya
Sure.
head in the clouds type
Good
thing. I mean,
vibes. Yeah.
good vibes, and that's all good. So nobody wants to ruin the good vibes. But you know what? If you sense if you and your community get together and say, hey, let's buy 6 pack of beers and just chill, and you find out that they've already maxed out the Dow credit card, you guys aren't going to have fun. Somebody has to say, hey guys, we have to curb the spending, otherwise this whole kumbaya thing goes away. Nobody's figured out that out yet, and that's where we are now, where we're saying, hey, we need to make money, otherwise this whole kumbaya thing goes away. So that's where we are. And I'm the guy who says, guys, we need to look at this. I'm not always right. I never profess to be right. I mean, I've always said that, if I walk into a room and I'm one of the smartest guys in the room, I'm probably in the wrong room. I don't want to be in the wrong room. I want to be the guy who points out things that are worth talking about, because you can dissent all you want, but if you dissent for no reason, then it's just inconsequential noise.
Yeah. You better come equipped.
Yep.
Better come
Yep.
equipped, and you
Yep.
certainly do that. So,
I try. I
at
try.
DSmart, if you want to connect with them, a couple of the sandbox spaces. So we have Discord, we have the DAO forums, which is just uses discourse. Then we have Twitter, the three hashtags I normally go over. But skipping over now to the Sandbox Spaces, Mochaversal on Mondays, Bulls on the Block on Saturday. That coincidentally is how I met Derek, by the way. So if you want to yourself, they talk about Sandbox and both of those places. In addition to the ApeCoin DAO, you can learn a great deal by listening to what goes on in those spaces. You'll hear people like Derek. You'll hear people like Aaron, Big Bull, uh, Anthony, Crypto Sheep, G, Mocha Chief. There are a lot of people who if you listen to him week to week, you'll hear some of the things that I'm bringing to you right now, and some of the things that dang it, Derek, Derek has just brought to us, which is the uncomfortable truth of if you pay attention to the numbers, you'll start to see a pattern emerge. Something that we have to pay attention to now as a Sandbox DAO, even though we might think it's a little ways off, or we might be comfortable now. That's not acceptable. We got to have a plan now. Either you plan to you what's the phrase? You If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's
Yep.
where we are right now as a sandbox. And thank you, Derek. I really appreciated your time going over this. Is there anything
Oh,
that closing remarks, anything that you wanted to go over, or any shout outs?
oh no, no, just to say that I wish you guys well with the DAO. Just look around, do your research, don't make the mistakes the other DAOs have made. You guys have the benefit of being young, and you have the benefit of learning from all the mistakes that previously made. So just remember, if you make money and you want to give money away, you got to find a way to fill those coffers. So find some revenue generating programs, and otherwise, you're going to find yourself relying on their endowment, and one day that's just going to go away, and bye bye DAO.
Yep. And I don't think any of us, well, some of us want that because very, very unhappy with the way the DAO was originated out of nowhere, and it felt less like a community decision and more like a downward direction. That's our take on the whole progressive decentralization thing. Is it's come a lot more centralized, and then some people really feel negatively about that. But we're definitely seeing a different path being taken. That's for darn sure. I'm seeing different paths, and which brings with it different levels of accountability. Whereas ApeCoin DAO, you all have to kind of take that on yourselves, and there's a lot of tension and all sorts of things. Thank you for your time, Derek. I don't want this to be the last time that we do a podcast because I feel like we spent half of it learning about who you are, whereas I really think that there's a lot to be said about some of these trend rates that we can pull and analyses and what the story tells us if you delve into the data. So I'll be looking for another opportunity in the future to invite you back on to where we can kind of learn as things are happening.
Absolutely. Always reach out to me when you want to talk, and I'm always around. And I'll hear you on Bulls on the Block on Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to it. See you, Derek.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.